Welcome back to Dave Does Math from Home. This is part 2 of our video on section P2. We're talking about exponents. There's a couple more things that I want to talk about with regards to exponents before I set you loose on the homework assignment. One of the things I want to talk about in terms of exponents is the idea of distributing exponents. This is a very touchy subject for me. I tend to get irrationally irritated when students distribute exponents wrong, so please pay very close attention. If you have something like 2 squared cubed, this 2 squared means 2 times 2, and that thing is going to happen 3 times. Grand total, we have 6 2's because 6 is 2 times 3. I'm not going to write the whole thing out, but you can imagine if you had 2 to the 5th to the 10th, you would get 10 little parenthesis things. You get 10 of these guys, and each of them has 5 2's in it. Grand total, you have 50 2's, because that's 5 times 10. So this is our third property of exponents. I call this exponents outside multiplication inside. That's, again, this is my sort of idiosyncratic name for it. If this name isn't doing anything for you, don't worry about the name. Just remember the property. Exponents raised to other exponents usually means you multiply the exponent. Where this is going to get a little weird is where you have things like 2a squared cubed. This gets weird because now there's 2 things in here. So I'm going to write this one out like I did this top one. This is going to give me 2 times a times a. This is what's inside the parentheses here. And I have 3 of them. So all together, I have 3 2's, and I have 6 a's, which sort of makes sense because there's 1 2 on the inside, and that's getting multiplied 3 times. There's 2 a's on the inside, that's getting multiplied 3 times. This is what most people talk about when they say that exponents distribute. So if you had something like 4 cubed times x to the 7th to the 4th power, you can skip a lot of these steps and you can sort of distribute this 4 in here and say that this is going to be 4 to the 12th times x to the 28th. When people talk about, not on camera anymore. When people talk about exponents distributing, this is what they mean. The thing that gets me vaguely irritated about this is that this only works over multiplication. This 4 can sort of distribute here because these 2 things are already multiplied. Distributes here because these 2 things are already multiplied. That's this relationship here. When you expand this out, it's all multiplication. The exponent means repeated multiplication. What's inside here is already multiplication. Every single one of these operations is multiplication. And that's what allows this distributive property to work here. If you try to take something like 2 plus x squared If you simplify that, you get a 2 plus x times a 2 plus x. These operations are different and they interact in different ways. There is no distribution here. This is not 4 plus x squared. Exponents don't distribute over addition and subtraction. They only ever distribute over multiplication and division. So this is no good. There is a way to do this. We're going to talk about it in section P4 when we start dealing with polynomials. The way that you're going to do this is called FOIL. It's barrels of fun. Stay tuned for that. But the big message in this video is don't distribute exponents over addition. That doesn't work. So I'm saying words like these exponents distribute. I will continue to say words like these exponents distribute. I always mean over multiplication. I never will say exponents distribute over addition because they don't. Under any circumstances. It is not a thing. Will never be a thing. So we have a third property. We have exponents distributing. I think we're ready to do some weird nonsense. So we're going to look at what happens when we try to put all of these properties together into one problem. So we'll take something like 2x cubed to the 4th times y over y to the negative 5th. There's a lot going on in here. There's exponents raised to other exponents. There's a distributive property involved here. There's multiple pieces. I should put an x out here as well. We'll say, sure, xy squared. Okay. Now there's even more going on. There's this thing is being raised to an exponent. We have another piece on top. We have another piece on the bottom. This is a big mess. We're going to take it apart piece by piece, put it back together so that it is simplified. First thing I'm going to do is this exponent piece. This 4, because this is multiplication, this 4 is going to distribute here and here. And that's going to leave me with 2 to the 4th times x to the 12th. I'm going to multiply the 3 and the 4, because that's how you handle exponents raised to other exponents. I have one more x, and I have a y squared. At this point, these parentheses are not necessary. Everything in here is just multiplication now, so I can clear all the parentheses. I have a y to the negative 5th on the bottom. I'm going to combine some of the stuff on top so that I have fewer moving pieces here. I guess the only thing that combines is the 2 x's. That's fine. I'm still going to do it. I still have a 2 to the 4th. X to the 12th times x should be x to the 13th. Y squared is going to hang out, and I still have this y to the negative 5th on the bottom. We know that negative exponents mean that we're going to flip it into the other position and write it as a positive exponent. So the 2 is going to hang out, 2 to the 4th, x to the 13th is going to hang out, y squared, not a 2. Y squared is going to hang out, and I'm going to put this y to the 5th on top. Now there's nothing on bottom, so I don't need a division bar anymore. I do need to combine these two y's though. So this will be, actually, some of the homework problems will ask you to write things in exponential form. which means 2 to the fourth stays 2 to the fourth. Sometimes they will sort of expect you to simplify this. 2 to the fourth is 16. So read the instructions on the homework problems carefully. On tests and quizzes, I would like these things simplified, unless they're completely unreasonable. If you end up with something like 3 to the 11th, don't try to tell me what 3 to the 11th is. I don't know. And I don't really expect you to either. But 2 to the 4th is reasonable. That's something I can expect you to do with a pencil and paper. That's 16. X to the 13th is going to hang out, and then this will be y to the 7th. So this is all of the pieces we're dealing with all at once. We're going to distribute. We're going to sort of combine like terms. We're going to figure out what's going on the top and bottom, move some stuff around if it has negative exponents, and put it all together at the end for one big final answer. I'm going to do one more example that looks like this, and then I'm going to talk about the various insidious ways that the homework is going to try and trick you. And then I will be finished with this video. So one more like this. Let's do x squared y cubed to the 4th times 2x to the negative 3 over x y to the 5th. Let's make this x a negative as well. Now, x times y to the 5th times x to the negative 2. Lots of nonsense happening here. Again, I'm going to start with this 4. No, I don't want that there. I want to change this a little bit. I want an x. Yeah, no, I do want an x to the negative 2. Put a y in there as well. I'm just going to make this whole thing with a negative 2 as well. Extra hard. We're doing all the things. So I'm going to deal with this 4 first. It's going to be an x to the 8th, y to the 12th, times 2x to the negative 3. On the bottom, this part's going to stay. X, y to the 5th. X to the negative 2 raised to the negative 2 again is going to be an x to the positive 4. And this is y to the 1 raised to the negative 2 will be a y to the negative 2. So I've distributed the 4 in here. I've distributed this 2 in here. This y to the, that's just a y to the 1. So I'm multiplying this negative 2 by the negative 2 there. I'm multiplying the 1 by the negative 2 here to get these numbers. I'm going to clean up this business. I'm going to try to combine like terms right now before I do anything else. I have 8 x's here, negative 3 of them here. So, well, I'm going to start with a 2 first. 2. Done. I should have 5 total x's in all that. And then there's still just 12 y's. That's what the top looks like, cleaned up a little bit. I also have 5 x's on the bottom and 3 y's once I clean that up. So it seems as if I've accidentally created a problem where after combining like terms, nothing is negative anymore. Next time I do this example, I'm going to have to make this number much bigger, like negative 11 or something. But this is fine for now. We know how to deal with division. X to the 5th over x to the 5th cancels. That's just totally gone. Y to the 12th over y cubed should give me 2y to the 9th when I subtract those numbers. And that's it. It's as simple as it gets. So these kinds of problems tend to have lots of moving parts. There's going to be distribution. There's going to be multiplying things, forcing you to add the exponents and turning your 8 and your negative 3 into a 5 here. There's going to be division that's going to force you to subtract the exponents. There's going to be negative exponents that make you flip things to the top and bottom. My advice is just to take it slow, do things one step at a time. If you rush, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to forget something or do something wrong. So don't do that. slow is best. So there's one last thing that I want to talk to you about before I end this video, and that is the various ways that the homework is going to try and trick you. One of their favorite ways to trick you is one of the things that I kind of did here pretty subtly. When you have something like 2x squared y to the fifth, they're going to not put a number here, and they're going to expect you to recognize that there's an implied 1 there. So this would be 2 to the fifth, which I think is 32, x to x to the 10th, and y to the 5th. So always remember that if there's nothing written, the implication is that there's a 1 there. The other really big, and this is honestly the really frustrating thing that they're going to do to trick you, is sometimes they're going to ask for stuff like -2 to the 4th, and sometimes they're going to ask you for stuff that just says -2 to the 4th. And these look like they ought to be the same thing, but they are not the same thing. In this one, this means -2 times -2 times -2 times -2. And when you have 4 negatives lining up like that, it's all going to cancel and you're just going to get positive 16. This means -2 times 2 times 2 times 2. This negative sign out front is sort of treated like it's a multiplication thing, which is, in my last video, we talked about how stuff like -x plus 3, we talked about how this negative sign distributes like it's multiplication. Same thing is happening here. You treat this negative as if it's a multiplication. It goes on the outside of the exponent. If you're doing order of operations, this happens first because it's an exponent. This happens later because it's multiplication. So in this case, you get -16. The 4 2's combine into 16 and the negative is hanging out in front. So the moral here is be very careful about where the negative sign is. -5 to the 0 and -5 to the 0 are different things. This is 1, this is -1. So be very careful about that. Be very careful about doing your steps slowly as you work through problems where lots of stuff is happening and there's a lot of complicated nonsense. As always, if you have questions, find me in ASC or ask me some questions in class, and good luck.